when we started, they were not good temperament. They were long and low. They were just weren't stylish, you know. They were, I did not like the look of those early dogs, but that's what they had and that's what they wanted. But gradually they began to change. Look at Kathy Marley. Her dogs were not very good in the beginning, but they have gotten progressively better over the years. And now her dogs look almost Orlane in outline, but they still have that sharp temperament that I can't live with. I mean, you know, but she's really done a good job structurally. You know, some people have an eye for a dog. That eye, if you don't have it, you're not going to be a successful breeder. Like a judge, like Alva Rosenberg, he had an eye for a dog. He could always pick out the good dogs. So could Billy Kendricks. They had an eye for a dog. I think I had an eye for a dog. I know one time went to these friends' house and they had a litter of puppies, and she said, why don't we look at them and decide who's the best? And they were running around in this large room, and I came over and I looked down across this half door at the puppies playing, and I said, that one. And she said, why that one? And I said, it's just the best one. And somebody else picked that one, and then somebody else picked another one. And then we got them out and started going over them. And the puppy that I had picked out had the best structure. It was simple. You could see him moving, how he carried himself, how he moved. You know, it just was, I don't know. I can't describe it.
Yeah, it's something that is hard to describe, but easy to see, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I used to sit at ringside and watch other breeds. And a lot of the time I could pick the better ones, you know, you just from ringside, just watching them. You know, you couldn't go over their mouth and stuff like that, but you could watch them move, and it was really pretty easy. I think I would have made a good judge.
So what do you think is because Lhasas are becoming almost extinct, really. There are very few old breeders and very few dogs being shown. So what is the problem? What is happening?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the animal rights activists have shut so many people down. And the AKC let them do that. I don't know why, but the AKC never stood up for their breeders. They never stood up for me when they came after me. So, I mean, you know, it was unfortunate, but I gave it up. I said, you know, I can't deal with this anymore. Too much, just.
I didn't know this. Did something happen, or?
I sold a Yorkshire puppy with a skin problem. What do you call it? I can't even think of the name of it now. Something that's transmissible to people. And this woman's daughter got it, and she was infuriated, and she came after me, and they said that I had sent her medication without a doctor's license. I had to go to court. They fined us a bunch of money, but we got off of it. And then I got rid of all my Yorkshires, you know. I just, those are what I had after I had the Lhasas, you know.
Yeah.
So I gave up breeding. I just said, I'm not going to deal with it anymore. It was an unfortunate thing. I don't know how the puppies even got this skin problem, but you know, hey, crap happens. What are you going to do? And I think that's what killed Anne. And it broke Anne's heart when she had to give up the Yorkies because she loved them.
There is always this discussion if the great dogs are made or bred. What's your view? If the great dogs if they're great because they're bred well or they're made into the great dogs?
Well, I think it's both. Both. You have to have both together. A dog is not great unless it's properly groomed and presented. And no matter how well you properly groom and present a dog, if it's not made right, it's not going to do that well. It'll do better, but not what it should.
Right.
I mean, Jean Lade was an expert presenter, but she didn't have anything to work with. You know, her dogs were not that good, and so I beat her consistently. She never could understand why, but it's because her dogs underneath were not that good, even though they were beautifully presented.
So, and in the 80s, 90s, when the breed was so successful and popular in America, what was that time like? Because that's when I met you in the 90s, not 80s. I was born in the 80s, but 90s. And
right.
I sent you an email, and that was about the hype of the breed, basically, at that time. You know, the Lhasas were very popular. There were lots of breeders, and you know, the specialties were huge at that time.
I remember going to shows where there would be 30 or 40 class dogs. I mean, you know, like 10 in the open class. It was real competition. It was exciting. When you won there, you know, that was really a good deal that you won. I mean, it really meant something. And the specialties, 200, 250.
Wow.
It's a lot of losses.
And what was the atmosphere between the people, and because there could only be one winner at any show, so there must have been a lot of unhappy people.
Well, a lot of them were not happy when I showed up, that's for sure. I didn't really pay much attention to what they thought. All I knew is I was showing my dogs. And the only reason I became a handler was so that I could get paid for showing some of these dogs, you know. Even then, a lot of them never paid me, or, you know, paid me late. But all I was concerned with was getting to the show, getting set up, getting everything ready. Linda would go with me in the motorhome and getting everything ready, and then lining up for the show. The Yorkshires, the Shih Tzus, the Lhasas, the Schnauzers, figuring out the right ring times. And I didn't have time to worry about what people thought. I couldn't have cared less, because I was just doing a job, you know?
Yeah.
Doing something I loved.
Yeah, of course. But the whole atmosphere between the Lhasa people, I mean, because you know all of them, basically all the breeders that are still breeding now were started later, after you. And there was always this Orlane team and Hamilton breeders. You know, the breed was always divided, not so much anymore.
Always, from the very beginning, when the McFaddens first sent out their newsletter berating me for breeding impure dogs.
Oh, really?
The McFaddens, yeah, I was on their list of people who bred impure dogs. But I was a real threat because my dogs were winning. And that's really what set them off. If I hadn't won, Sparky became the top sire, and his offspring were winning everywhere. That really set the divide even deeper, because they couldn't compete. I mean, what are you going to do when people get angry because you've got a better dog? Well, let them get angry, you know. Keep on doing what you're doing.
But do you think that maybe the breeders were sharing dogs more, like you were using other people's dogs and you let other breeders use your dogs? Do you think that this was maybe more in the breed? Because nowadays everybody wants to protect their line and nobody lets other breeders really use their dogs.
You know, that's that day. I didn't care who used my dogs. Anybody could breed to them. I mean, look, I let Barry Tompkins breed his Hamilton bitch to Sparky. I didn't care, and I used Hamilton dogs because I felt some of them had something I could use. I'll remember one cross I made. I carried it down for 6 generations, and I could not get rid of that temperament. So I canned that whole line. I just, you know, it was so they were either overly nasty or overly shy. And I just couldn't handle it. You know, the Sparky line, whatever he had behind him, they were bright and happy and loved people.
Yeah.
I don't know why they were so different than the Hamilton dogs. I have no idea. All I know is that they were. Still are to this day.
Yeah, that's true. But what were the main features that you wanted to keep in your breeding? Because when I came to Orlane, to Linda, and I saw, you know, she let the dogs out and there were, I don't know, 20 or 25 dogs, all cut down. And you could see that these dogs are one family, basically. And they were from puppies to 17-year-old dogs, but they were not all the same, but they had the same features, you know, the neck, the top line, the tails, you know, the proportions, everything was very similar in those dogs. I mean, you could definitely tell that this is one line of dogs. So how did you create that?
It's just because I always kept back those dogs that fit that picture. I had a picture in my mind of what I wanted. And if the dog didn't fit that picture, I didn't keep it. Sometimes I would have a whole litter that were just what I wanted. Other times there would be a litter and there would be nothing in it that I would keep. So I think it was just selection. Basically, that's all dog breeding is selection. You understand selection of type?
Yeah.
Well, read up on it. Selection of type.
Yeah, of course.
That's you look for type. You pick out a picture in your mind of what you want, and if you don't have an eye, you can't see it. But if you have an eye for that picture, you can pick them out.
And did you because there's lots of line breeding in the Orlane dogs, did you do that purposely, or was there some was there some worry that it might be too close sometimes or something?
I really didn't worry that much about it. I figured the closer the better. I don't know if I did any inbreeding, but I remember Sparky. Remember Sparky? Yeah.
You did some brother-sister matings for sure.
Okay, well, Sparky was the result of a father to a daughter breeding.
Oh.
He was sired by Clown out of a Clown daughter, but the Clown daughter was out of a Hamilton bitch. So that was a perfect combination.
Right, so you didn't really do like line breeding or, you know, purposely breeding dogs because of the pedigrees and something. Did you?
No, I bred them according to how they looked. If I had one who I thought didn't have a good front, I'd always try to breed that dog to a dog with a good front. You know, I mean, the varying degrees of bad and good, but, you know, you always try to offset. Like Rodden was such a beautiful dog, wonderful structure. Beautiful mover, great temperament.
Who?
Rotten, inimitable.
Ah, yes.
But he had a lousy mouth and head. had a wry mouth, and scrambled teeth. So I never really specialed him. But as a sire, he was outstanding. But I always tried to breed him to bitches with good mouths.
Mm.
You know, that's what how you set type.
Yeah. Why was he called Rotten?
Because he was so spoiled. He was very easy. One time I had a little duck that I had rescued somehow, and I kept it in a little pond, plastic dish pond in my front yard, away from the other dogs. I mean, we had the two houses, you know, the house and back, and then that was all fenced in, and then the little house out in front. Well, this little duck lived in this little pond in the front. Well, one day he got into the house, into the yard, and of course, Rotten nabbed him right away. I remember chasing him through the yard, let that duck go, and Linda shouting, don't kill him, he's just a duck, it's not Rotten. But he killed my duck. He was so spoiled, he really was. Because he could get away with murder because he was so charming.
I heard, I don't know if it was him or some other dogs that used to kill your chickens.
I can't remember that. I mean, I probably all of it. I mean, you know, Lhasas are born predators for little animals, and I mean, they'll go after rats and mice and squirrels and birds, anything that, you know, they can. They're just, that's their instinct.
Yeah. So what would be your advice to young people in the breed?
I would advise them, first of all, to learn how to groom. Find a mentor who can show you how to groom dogs properly. But that's not easy. If they can do that, then the next step, of course, is to pick out a dog they like and figure out why they like that dog and try to breed more like it. I guess that's what I did. It took me 5 years to learn how to groom.
Really?
At least, yeah. Of course, a lot of it was because I was not very well, I wouldn't say I was lazy, but I was not very well dedicated to, not like Clive or Linda. You know, I just haphazardly went about it until I realized how important it really was.
Yeah.
But you do a nice job of grooming.
Yes.
Thank you. Your dogs always look beautiful.
Well, it's a lot of work. I mean, the consistency is, the consistent baths are probably the most important. You know?
The what?
The consistent baths and the frequency of the baths is the most important. I learned.
Right.
But you know.
But you have to use the right products too.
Yeah, but I learned it's not the most important thing, you know. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe I just use my good stuff, and that's why I think it's not really important. But yeah.
I guess it all goes together, everything. All of it. It all makes a total picture. The grooming, the products, the dog itself, how you handle it, how you train it, how do you work with this dog? I mean, if you don't have a feel for the animal, how it's responding, how are you going to get across the message of what you want it to do without making him stubborn or angry or whatever? You have to work with them, you know. I remember when I first got the Avenger, he was 11 months old, and his coat wasn't great, you know, it was adequate, but not just barely to the ground. And we went to the Florida circuit, And when he first came to me, he kind of crept out of the crate. He was kind of a little bit shy. But, you know, after a couple of days working with him and feeding him, he got happy. And so when we got to Florida, the first show I took him in the ring, he was wild. All these Lhasas, he couldn't believe his eyes. He danced, he bounced, he went up and down and back and forth, and I couldn't, and I got reserved because he was just too wild. So that night and the next day, I worked him in the ring, and we worked together. And from then on, he won the next 4 shows and finished. But it took a while for us to develop that, what I wanted from him and what he knew I wanted. You have to have that feeling between you and the dog. I mean, I don't know how to describe that. Yeah, I love dogs. I guess that's, if you don't really like animals or like dogs, it's not going to come easy for you.
And are Lhasas maybe different than other breeds? Is there something special?
Well, when you walk into a room, if a Lhasa is laying in front of you, it won't move. You have to walk around the Lhasa. If you walk into a room and a Yorkshire's laying on the floor, if you start toward them, they'll bounce out of the way quickly, or a Schnauzer. So Lhasas are rather phlegmatic, and they expect you to respect their space. They're more human. What can I say? They're the little dog with a human personality. They really are. I think that's why I love them so much. The Schnauzers were fun, but they were terriers. They were always interested in going after stuff and bouncing around and barking and carrying on and having a good time, Charlie, you know. Too busy to really pay attention. But the Lhasas were always watching you. Even when you went to the bathroom, they would come and sit in the doorway and watch you. They didn't want to be near you necessarily, but they would always want to be in the same room you were, keeping an eye on.
And is that something that you have to keep in mind when you're showing them?
Absolutely.
You know, the temperament?
Absolutely. It's very important. If you don't have that connection, how are you going to show them? You have a connection with your dogs, don't you?
Well, of course. I mean, you have to, but I learned that with the Lhasa, you really have to have more than just, nice word for the dog, because they just will not do it. I mean, they might show, but there's a difference when they really want to show and when they...
Absolutely.
When you just drag them around, so... Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to work. You have to learn their moods and their, like Alamo at the garden. That was just too much. If I've had it, I'm not showing, I'm done. You just put me through too much today, now I'm done. So he made himself very clear. If I had listened to myself and let him rest, we would have been fine. But no, They had to really,
But going back to Alamo, you didn't really use him that much, did you? Or the dogs from Gene?
He sired about 5 litters, I think. I can't remember all that he sired, but
right.
Some of his stuff was good, some of it was mediocre. I know, I loved my Nellie Bly. You remember Nellie?
Yeah.
She was so beautiful. But she never really produced anything as good as herself. I don't know why, but hey.
Sometimes that's how it goes.
Hey, you just never know. Sometimes the mediocre dog will produce that outstanding dog, and the outstanding dog won't produce anything. But down from further generations, they'll come out.
And how was it when you went to England and you saw the English dogs, the females mostly that Jean had, who are very different than the dogs after Intrepid?
Very, very different. Dark colored, smaller, nice temperament, but straight behind and straight in front. Just little square boxes of dogs. Jean couldn't see that. Not until she read to Intrepid, and then she began to see the difference.
Yeah.
So he really did upend the breed in England. He really did. But Avenger was better.
Oh.
He was better. He moved flawlessly. He was a beautiful mover. Best moving dog I've ever had on the lead. Intrepid was good. I mean, you know, he was good, but he wasn't as good as his father. Avenger was one of a kind. And Barry Tompkins. You know, they never paid me a handling fee.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, that's how cheap they were. Jews from New York. They had a maid, but they couldn't pay me a handling fee. I slept in my car, going from show to show to get that dog where he was. All for Sparky, not for him, but not for Barry. But I remember when Barry was afraid I wasn't going to send the dog back to him. But when I sent the dog back, he never said anything, you know. But then the next time I went to a show, I think it was in Detroit. I can't remember where it was. Anyway, Barry showed up with the Avenger. Took him around the ring, tripped over him, going around. He was a total loss. He could not show the dog, you know. And that was the last time he ever was shown. It was a shame. I won with the dog I was showing then. I think it was Buzzy, but I'm not sure. Buzzy, glamorous Buzzy. All he was hair. He had a ton of hair. I remember Marge kept wanting me to show him as a puppy, and I said, well, he's not ready yet. He was 11 months old, and she said, well, just let me send him to you. And I finally said, well, okay, figuring I'd have to wait a couple of months to grow coat. But he stepped out of the crate. He was tripping over his hair. He had so much coat. I had to trim him. And I think he lost a lot of his first shows because the judges couldn't understand why a dog that had so much coat was being shown in the classes.
Yeah.
He really was a hairy beast. Can you see what I have up on the screen?
No, you have to click on the bottom, you have to click share screen. Yeah.
Can you see that? Now you can see it?
Yes.
Okay. The boys. There they are.
Yeah, I think if you go to famous producers, you'll get those really old dogs. Yeah. There we go. Oh, Rustus, yes, of course.
Do you have that on your, you can access that.
Yeah. I created this website.
Oh, okay.
So I know.
Oh, okay. All right.
How do you, when you look at that piece of history that's there in front of you, how do you feel?
When I look at what?
At that piece of history.
I think it's a shame that in a few years it'll all be forgotten.
Yeah.
But you know, who cares? I mean, I had a great fun doing it, but it's over now. And what happens from here on depends on what people do with those bloodlines. So you still have some dogs.
I only have 4.
But that's quite a few. That's really, and there you sit with no hair in your sweatshirt. You're not doing anything. Why aren't you breeding more dogs? You should be breeding more dogs. You're young.
Yeah, I know.
How old are you, Radek?
36.
You're a young man.
Yeah. Well, I
Or
think.
see, if you were straight, you would have a family and some children to carry on the line. But oh no, you have to go with guys. Is that ridiculous? I mean, I'm so aggravated with you.
Oh my God.
Well, it's true.
Now I really can't publish this video.
Can't you cut out part of it?
Yeah, I will do my best.
Oh, shame on you.
Yeah, I know.
You're a bad boy.
Yeah.
But I love you just the same.
Yeah, I know. I love you too.
Let's close this out for now and we'll come back and do more another day.
Okay, I will see what I can do with the editing of this video to keep it, you know. Okay, but it was really nice to catch up and talk to you. We can continue some other
What do
time.
they call that? What do they call that little camera?
I don't know.
A webcam?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know what you called it.
A webcam, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Take care. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.